Hi, my name is Kay Sutha. I am a business strategist and I will be your host. In this podcast, I'll be getting raw, real, and relentless whilst interviewing successful entrepreneurs from all over the world who specialize in different aspects of business. We will cover the 5 main pillars of business, which are sales, marketing, finance, operations, and leadership, but not forgetting mindset, live and digital events, plus much, much more. You will gain insights, tips and tricks, and discover jaw-dropping actionable steps that you will be able to put in place for your business right away. Guys, I have an amazing speaker for us today on the show. Oh my God. So she is all the way from the Netherlands. Our next speaker, she is a superhero traveling the world while helping others achieve greatness. She is living proof that you can leave behind a shitty lifestyle that is making you miserable and create a life for yourself that makes your heart sing while connecting fully to your authentic superpowers. She now teaches highly sensitive people, empaths, intuitives, and spiritual entrepreneurs all over the world to embrace and accept themselves fully and connect to their true authentic self by getting to know their inner manual. She is here today to share with us how to step into your zone of genius and turn your passion into a profit machine. Please welcome Barbera Schouten, transformation and empowerment coach of the Solopreneur Success System. Barbera, oh my God, thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
Oh, you are so welcome, Kay. I loved your intro and I love being here. I'm looking forward to our talk today.
Definitely. Now, we did have a pre-chat before this, and the things that you told me and the transformations you're creating for people was out of this world. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, the first paragraph that she mentioned, I was like, Barbera, you have to be on my show. You got to come on. So thank you for coming on today. And we are going to be giving a lot of information to our audience today. I know we've got loads of nuggets to give to people. But before we jump into all of that, I would love for you to tell our audience today a little bit of your background and how you decided to start this particular business.
Yes, I would love to share that because I think it's an important story for people who resonate with it. So when I was growing up, I got picked on and bullied a lot in school. And I often got told by my parents and my teachers that I was just too sensitive. They told me things like, don't take everything so seriously. You need to grow a thicker skin. Don't take everything so personal, or you really need to learn how to let things go.
Wow.
And in hearing those words, I create this story for myself that I am not good enough the way that I am, and that there is something wrong with me, that I'm weird or strange. And in that moment, I decided to suppress my sensitivity and to survive through my powers of reasoning, to prove that I could be a normal person just like everybody else, because I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to get their approval. I wanted to get their love.
Right.
So I forced myself to be big and strong and to show a brave face to the outside world and to do what I thought was expected of me.
Right.
And if you then fast forward to when I'm 32 years old, and I'm working as a project manager in an IT company. And a little bit of background, the IT company is struggling. And as a result, I'm under a lot of pressure to make this project succeed. It was like a make or break project. So, no pressure. And the customer is being difficult. And my boss is not giving me the support that I need. And my team is counting on me. And I feel responsible for them, but I don't have any power to actually change things. And the whole project, it's just not running smoothly. So I'm under a tremendous lot of stress and pressure.
Right.
And it is in that same time that my boyfriend of 7 years completely unexpectedly, totally out of the blue, just ended our relationship. There were no warning signs. We didn't even have a fight. He just stood up one night after watching a movie, turned around and looked at me and said, I'm done with this relationship. I want you to move out at the end of the week.
What?
my response, I was shocked and flabbergasted, and I didn't know how to respond. But that was just the final straw, the proverbial last drop in the bucket. And consequently, I just end up in a severe burnout, and I totally lose contact with myself. I felt like my reasoning was all the way over here and my feelings all the way over there, and they were no longer in touch and definitely not communicating with each other anymore. And being able to think things through intellectually was no problem at all. But when it came to my feelings, I couldn't keep up anymore. All of a sudden, I had all these emotions that I didn't know how to handle, and I couldn't stop crying. And I was so tired. And all I could think was, why is this happening to me? I work so hard and I'm a good person. I don't understand. And I felt like a failure, like I had failed my boss, my coworkers, myself, and I was a mess. And it's in that time when I was talking with my boss, actually, that he tells me, yeah, but you are an HSP because my wife is an HSP and you're exactly the same. And then he moved on with his talk. And at first I didn't really know how to respond to that. I thought, are you calling me a name because you're disappointed in me or something? I didn't even know if I had to be offended because I didn't know what he meant with HSP.
And you know what? I just want you to just explain, what does HSP mean to the audience? Because there's probably a lot of people out there that doesn't know what that means.
No, exactly. So that's my thoughts. Exactly. I remembered what the term was, and I went to my workstation and I decided to Google it. And it turned out HSP stood for highly sensitive person. And then I started to read about high sensitivity and what it means to be a highly sensitive person.
Right.
And it felt like I was coming home to myself. All of a sudden, all these things about myself that I didn't understand made sense. And I recognized so much in every story of every highly sensitive person that I read. And for the first time in my life, I realized I'm not weird and I'm not strange. And there's definitely nothing wrong with me. There are more people out there like me.
Right.
And this process catapulted me into a journey of self-discovery, discovering who I am, what is actually important to me, what do I stand for, what am I passionate about, and how do I want my future to look. And that is how I actually started my first business, because I realized that the way into a burnout for a highly sensitive person was completely different than for a non-highly sensitive person. Apparently, there are people who can end up in a burnout without having seen any signs, warning signs. They are like, how did this happen all of a sudden? And I felt it coming. I signaled it to my boss. I kept saying it's going wrong and it's too much stress and I cannot handle it. And they kept saying, oh, that's not good. We're going to do something about it.
Yeah.
But they just never did. And I wasn't prepared for that part.
No.
I didn't know how to handle that. In hindsight, I should have called in sick. But I had been taught that you only call in sick when you cannot get out of your bed anymore.
Right.
So that just didn't enter in my mind. And I have this huge responsibility, this huge sense of responsibility. And I kept hoping that they would finally do something with my signals. And that just didn't happen until it was too late.
Right.
And so that's a big distinction between how other people end up in a burnout and how a highly sensitive person ends up in a burnout. And I also discovered that the way out of a burnout for a highly sensitive person is completely different. Because my boss sent me to a psychologist for cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right.
And she gave me assignments and I told her, I know exactly what you want me to learn from this. And she was like, right. So what do you think that I want you to learn from this exercise? And I told her, oh, this and this and this and this.
Okay.
And she was like, oh, yes. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. That's what I want you to learn from it. And I told I already know all of it. It doesn't help one iota. I still ended up in the burnout, but I already know this. So I discovered that kind of therapy for me just didn't work. And that signaled a 2.5 year journey of discovering how to get out of my burnout and what did work for me. And that's what eventually led me to starting my first business, helping highly sensitive persons or people with too much stress or an impeding burnout or already in a burnout to just go back to a state of well-being and feeling good about themselves. And that was my first business, and that eventually transformed into the business that I now have, where I just help people become who they are always supposed to be, who they were when they were born, and discover what is really important to them and what they want to get out of bed for in the morning, and then I help them to create that life for themselves.
And you know what, Barbara, I gotta say, I love your story, right? Although you've been through the ups and the downs and trying to, you went through this journey, and it wasn't always, really very good or what you wanted to hear or where you wanted to be. But no. I'm so glad you mentioned this story and you told this story, because there's so many people out there that go through similar things, right? Yes. Where people don't tell them that, they're not good enough, whether it be at work or at home or boyfriends or parents. There's always people that are putting you down, right? And you always find that it's your fault. I was one of them. I was, I had no idea. I thought it was my fault. And you always do, because you don't know what's going on when so many people around you that you love keep telling you the same thing. You start to believe it, right?
That's what happened.
Right, but then all of a sudden you get older, you get a little bit wiser, you do your research, and you find out that the reason they were calling you weird and strange is because they're not your people. They're not the circle of people, right, that you should really be having around you, even though they're family, right? And so you can't get rid of family. It doesn't mean that, they are the right type of people. You just got to learn to live with family now. Right. But now you know who you want to attract near you and who you don't.
Yes, most definitely. So, and that's indeed one type of person. But I also discovered that sometimes people can also be influenced by their parents or by their society rules. So they are just kind of repeating what they have been taught. And if you, like my mother, for instance, I went to her and I said, Mom, I finally figured out what's wrong with me, because then I still thought something was wrong with me. And I said, I'm a highly sensitive person. And her response was, child, I know I am one too, but that's not something to be proud of. And that's what my grandmother taught her, to be just like everybody else, because she honestly believed that then the world would be easier.
Oh, that is insane. That is insane. So just to fit in with the rest of the world and to have an easier life, you got to do what everyone else does, and you can't do anything different. Wow.
And that's why my mom was saying those things to me, not because she's not the right type of person, but because she loved me and she wanted me protected for the downsides of being a highly sensitive person. And she had been taught to be just like everybody else by my grandmother, and she honestly believed that that was a good strategy.
Yes. Oh, that is a completely different perspective right there. Amazing. Well, all right, so I heard, Barbara, that you have an ability to be able to read between the lines when someone is having a conversation with you, talking with you. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, it's one of my favorite abilities. I have a couple of abilities actually, but this is one of my favorites. It's, I've always been able to do this. Even when I was still working in IT, I was the one that started talking with the customer, for instance, and then they would explain what they wanted. Mm-hmm. And I could hear when they were explaining what they wanted, what they actually wanted, the things that they were not saying. But what I perceived from what they were saying were the things that they actually wanted. And that allowed me to then ask them questions and saying, okay, but I hear you saying this, but I think that this or this would serve you much better. And then they were like, oh my God, it's like you read my mind. This is exactly what I need. And that was already a very handy skill when I was working in IT. But now that I'm a coach, it means that when people tell their story to me, I hear all the things that they're not saying. I hear the subtle nuances, and I hear the grief or the hurt or the other things that are underneath the things that they're saying. And it gives me a vast amount of information that me then helps to ask the questions that lead them to get to a certain result or a certain conclusion that they need in order to be able to move forward in their life.
Yeah, and I can imagine, especially the industry that you're in, a lot of people go through hurt, but they don't like to admit it, right? Or they like to go talking around in circles and not really get to the root of anything. So having that ability of reading between the lines and actually seeking out what the truth is definitely a handy skill to have.
Yes,
right?
Most definitely. Yes.
So tell me this, what qualifies you as an expert in this field, apart from your own experience?
Yes. Well, own experience is not to be underestimated because, because of everything that I went to, it makes it so that I understand a vast majority of people. And that's the interesting thing about what you do. Everybody that comes, I have things in common with everybody, but everybody's story is different and every person is different, even though we might all be highly sensitive or empathic or intuitive. And so that's just really wonderful. But besides that, I studied a lot about the human body and the human mind. I did studies like Ayurveda. I am also an acupuncturist. I did acupressure. I am an emotional freedom technique practitioner so that I can help people overcome limiting beliefs. But I'm also an energy healer. So I did my Reiki 1 and 2. I did soul body fusion. I did reconnection. I did various courses in coaching techniques and using nature as a second coach, for instance, but I also did NLP and, I access bars is one of the things that I've done. So I like to have a lot of tools in my toolbox because then I am flexible. I don't think one size fits all. I think everybody is a beautiful, unique person. And because of all these different experiences, I am able to see who you are and what you need, reading between the lines, what it is that you actually need. And then I can take the tools from my toolbox that would fit you the best and give you an experience that's mainly suited to you and who you are to give you the best possible results at the end of our time together.
I love that because that means that you can custom make different strategies to suit each individual person by pulling out certain things from your different toolbox, like you said. And you know what? A lot of people say to me that they're good at one thing, they should stick to one thing, they shouldn't really jump into different areas. But as human beings, we're going to have other interests, right? And there's going to be other interests that spiral from one thing. And the fact that you've gone in there and you've researched and you've tried out different things in your area is actually, I think, amazing because you can now custom make certain strategies for different individuals now, So it's not one size fits all. Because it doesn't.
One of the things I discovered is that I am a multipotentialite. And that was one of the issues I had when I was younger. This society forces us to choose one thing. What do you want to be when you grow up? One thing. Yeah. What do you want to be? Right. And then all your education is geared towards becoming that one thing. Yeah. And when people asked me that question, my answer was happy. What do you want to be when you grow up? Happy. That was my answer. But that was not accepted because they wanted to hear fireman or ballerina or astronaut or something. And then they make you feel bad because you cannot choose one thing. But my strength is the fact that I am good at a lot of things. I discovered about myself that there isn't something I tried that I wasn't good at. And I might not be an expert, a complete expert like a heart surgeon in one area, but I don't need to be. Yeah. In order to do my job really well, it's enough to be a general surgeon with a lot of areas of expertise, and that I can then choose or mold around the people that I help to give them the best end results. And it's time that people heard that being a multipotentialite is a strength and is a beautiful thing, and that if you have various interests and that you are all good at, that is your strength, and not just focusing on one thing that seems to be a popular thing in our society.
And it's so funny that you said that you want to be happy when you grow up, right? Because when I was asked the question, what do I want to be when I grow up? It was, I want to be rich. Right? That was my answer. And it's okay not to have it all planned out, to have it all figured out, because that's what the journey in the life you're on is for, is to find out who you actually are and finding out what you're passionate about. And so when people say that, you know, you're strange, you're weird, you don't know what you're doing, or you need to focus on one career and you got to go down that path and you're not doing that, you're doing different things, that's okay. It's not a problem at all, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so tell me this, Barbara. So you're talking a lot about, you know, energy and healing and dealing with emotions and things like that. But how does that work for business owners and entrepreneurs? What does that mean for them?
Well, as a business owner, usually you are your business.
Yes.
So how well you are doing is how well your business is doing. And especially if you are an intuitive entrepreneur or an empath entrepreneur or a highly sensitive entrepreneur, then energy management is the number one most important skill that you need to master, because you are prone on taking over other people's energies and other people's emotions as if they are your own. So when you are coaching people with problems, you want to leave their problems with them. It's good to empathize. It's good to understand them, you know, that's really beneficial. So those are other superpowers that I have, but I shouldn't stay stuck with their emotions.
Right.
I should be able to let those emotions go as soon as the session is over and not have them weigh me down and make it so that I have sleepless nights.
Right.
So that is one aspect. And the other aspect is that people are always drawn to us because we are good listeners, because we have a big heart. And what they then tend to do is drain us of our energy. I think we all know somebody that always loves talking with us. And then after an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, when they're finally done, they leave feeling happy and relieved and excited. And you're like an old wet newspaper on the couch and you're just exhausted and drained and overwhelmed and done for the rest of the day.
Right. Yes, I totally hear where you're coming from. I've been there, and I've known so many other coaches and entrepreneurs have been there too. So that makes complete sense. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so and not just your customers, you know, it's also other business tasks like your marketing or your sales. And those can also be extremely draining tasks. And it's imperative that you find what suits you, what fits you, and doing it in a way that utilizes your natural born gifts and talents instead of draining you at the end of the day.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You know, there's just like with life, there's always going to be things that's going to be thrown at you that you're not going to expect. And it's learning how to not have those negative emotions, have the positive emotions, and be able to find a solution around whatever's being thrown at you, right? Because once you're in the negative emotion, you're overwhelmed, you're stressed out, you're not going to be able to find a solution. It's not going to happen. You just shut down. So it's learning to change those energies for more positive energies, what you're saying.
Yes, being in control of your emotions, being in control of your energy, and being in control of your stress.
Yes.
That's what it's about.
Brilliant, brilliant. So tell me this. Do you have a principle that you can teach our audience today that they can immediately apply?
Yes, definitely. One of the most important things for people to understand is the power of your breathing. And some people might think this is a bit wishy-washy, but you know, our breath is our life. If we do not breathe, then we do die. Then we don't live, we die, you know? And what I see with everybody, and no exceptions, everybody that comes into my practice, is that they breathe up here in the chest area.
Yes.
And whenever we become emotional, whenever it becomes too much, it always manifests here in the top part, like pressure on your chest, or a lump in your throat, or pain in your neck, pain in your head, stiff neck and shoulders, or eyes watering, crying, stuffed nose, you know, it's always up here.
Right.
So when your breathing is already up here, it's very easy to overflow into emotion.
Wait, hold on a second though. But we're meant to breathe up here. This is where our lungs are. We get told to breathe from our lungs all the time.
No, we are meant to breathe from our belly. So we use the lungs to drive the breath into the belly. And then our belly needs to extend whenever we breathe in. And whenever we breathe out, the belly needs to go in. And then the breath comes out through the lungs and out of the mouth or the nose. So we need to breathe deeper, because your power core, where you operate from, where you also can feel your limits and where you can feel how tired you are, that is located in your belly, around your navel. Some say a little bit above, some say a little bit below, but around that area. And if you breathe in towards that area, towards your belly, then you literally control, you connect with your breath to your power center. And when you connect your breath to your power center, it takes much longer for your emotions to overflow, because it's like grounding your emotions in your power center.
Okay.
That's where you can compare it to. And it means that you have far more control over what happens during the day. If you take, for instance, the example that somebody gets fired at work. And that's usually not something that you see coming. Sometimes you do, but then even then, at the moment that people ask you into their office and they tell you, you're fired, usually that triggers a severe emotional response, right?
Right, yeah.
And the moment that we are breathing from our belly, we feel it, but we are able to think, oh, and then breathe some more and then control how we respond to it.
Okay.
If we're breathing from up here and we hear this, then it's almost immediately crying, especially when you're highly sensitive or intuitive, because we are such sensing, feeling beings. When we breathe up here, it almost always ends up in our losing control over our emotions at a time that we do not want to lose that control.
So we all need to learn how to breathe through our stomachs and not from our lungs, basically.
Yes, to use both.
That's what we get told. Breathe in through your lungs, breathe out through your, we get told that all the time. So that is interesting that we have been breathing all our life and we've been doing it completely wrong.
Well, you always use your lungs when you're breathing. You just have to push the breath deeper into the body so that it also reaches your belly.
Okay, gotcha. So do you have any recent success stories of your clients that you've had that you can share with us today?
Yes, definitely. I have multiple. One of my favorite stories is from a woman that came to me, and she was on the verge of no longer wanting to live. She loved her husband, but that was about the only positive thing she could name about her life. She didn't really have any friends. She was miserable in her job. She was miserable with her coworkers. And she thought, if this really is all there is to life, then I'm not sure I want to live it anymore.
Wow.
And that was profound. And she told me, you are my last hope. And she had found my website and she resonated with my story and with my information on the website. And she thought, I'm going to make an appointment with you because I don't know what to do anymore. And I don't really want to take my life, but I also don't want to keep on living the way I am living right now. And I'm stuck. I'm trapped. I'm miserable and help, basically. That was her story. And well, that got me in the heart area. She was such a wonderful person, but she didn't see how wonderful she was. And she let all these outside circumstances dictate how she felt about herself and how she saw herself. And that was a big part in how she was so miserable. And she hired me. We had a good connection and we started working together. And I'll never forget that I was meeting her for the third time. And she came up to me with this huge smile. And she was like, oh, I could hardly wait for our session because I need to tell you something. And you are the only one that will understand and the only one I can share it with. So I've been just impatiently waiting to see you today. And I felt like, wow. And she said, oh yeah, I want to tell you. And I said, I become excited as well, So I said, tell me, I want to know. And she said, you'll never guess what I did this week. I said, of course not, but tell me because I'm dying here, I need to know this. And she said, I wore 2 different colored socks to work, the entire work. And I thought, fuck it. And I loved every moment of it. And I felt so powerful. I thought,
no way. Wow.
How amazing is that? I thought, wow. And then you need to know this was a gray mouse type of person that didn't draw any attention to herself, that was always on the background, always very correct. And she wore a blue sock and a red sock and then a green sock and an orange sock and every day 2 different colored socks. And that was her form of inner rebellion, letting out inner child. And it was so beautiful to see her light up like that.
Yeah.
And she said, but that's not all. That's not all. Do you want to know what else I did? And I said, of course,
Yeah.
You need to tell me. And she said, this was in the fall or in the autumn for you other English speaker people. In the fall, and there were leaves everywhere. And she said, we went into the forest, my husband and me, and we went for a walk. And I kicked every leaf I could find. Every leaf. I went crazy. I went wild. I just completely let myself go, and I kicked every leaf in the whole damn forest, and I loved every second of it.
Oh my goodness. That you just telling me this story has got me excited, right? And what that shows me is that little steps. All you need to do is start taking little steps, right? And there might be other people that are thinking, what? She wore different color socks each week, but that was a big deal for her. She's never done that before. And kicking leaves, again, other people might be thinking, oh, I kick leaves all the time. But again, if this is not what you normally do, and you are an introvert and you don't want to cause attention, this is a huge deal, right?
It was profound, just earth-shattering.
Right. And it's taking those steps forward, right? And doing more and more things like that will allow you to kind of open up, change your perspective, change your ways, and all of a sudden life becomes a lot more brighter.
Yes, right? a lot more fun.
Yes, exactly.
And a lot more worth living.
Right. And that's what you did for her. And I can see that you're excited. You may be excited. I was like, oh my God, I want to know more. Right. That's amazing.
In such a short time, she went from wanting to no longer live to acting and being so enthusiastic as would be a little girl,
Right.
And that huge difference in such a short time.
You brought out her inner child.
Yes.
She needed that. Perfect.
Yes.
Barbara, if people want to get to know you more, if they want to reach out to you or even receive some free content from you, where can they go?
Well, they can find me on most social medias, or almost all social medias, big social medias, under HSP Coach Barbara. That's also my website, HSP Coach Barbara with an E, so BARBERA.com. So that's where they can go. I have written a lot of blogs that you can find on my webpage. I have a YouTube channel where I answer a lot of questions from everybody. So if your question is not there, just email me your question, and your question will be next week's video. Perfect. That's where you can already get a lot of information. Also can see how I am and how I coach. I also have a podcast called Being 100% Yourself with Barbara, where I share a lot of other wisdom. And I have a gift actually for everybody. Besides being able to book a free call with me, if you feel that you're resonating and you just want to explore if we have a good click and if and what I could do for you, then just book the free call that you can book through my website. But I also have written an ebook that I call Roadmap to Living a Life You Love. And at this moment, you can download it for free from my website. So either just go to the main website and you will see it in the header, or you put /roadmap behind it and you'll go directly to the page for the ebook. And that's my gift to everybody listening here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Barbara. You know what? We all love free gifts. And if anybody feels like they're stuck, that they're not living life to the fullest, something is missing, go to Barbara's website. Go and check out those gifts that she has on there for us. Make sure you book a strategy call with her as well. Have a conversation with her. I'm sure she's going to be able to change your world impactfully in just a short time that you have a conversation with her. Go and do it. Go and find her. Go and chase her up. Go and send her an email, whatever it is that you can, because you shouldn't be feeling like that. If you're feeling like this, you're living in misery, let's change it and let Barbara help you do that as well. Thank you for coming on the show, Barbara. It was amazing to have you. Oh, and I just want to let everyone know the links that Barbara's mentioned, they're all going to be in the show notes. So if you missed it while she was saying it out on the video on this podcast, they will be down below for sure. Again, thanks for coming onto the show, Barbara. It was amazing to have you here.
Oh, I loved being here, Kay. So thank you so much for the opportunity and the invite. And well, everybody, I hoped that you resonated with my story and that you either know somebody or that it did something for you. And I wish you all a lovely rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Barbara. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for your time and listening to Uncensored Society podcast. All resources mentioned throughout the episode will be added to the show notes, and you'll be able to find them at the bottom as you scroll down. Don't forget to go ahead and subscribe and leave a review in iTunes. Thank you once again.